Okay, this video will be short and sweet. It'll be relatively quick. I'm going to talk through the solutions to all of the problems on the Completing the Square practice quiz for tomorrow's quiz, which will happen on January 11th, 2019 in Algebra 2 at Speedway High School. So again, this practice test is going to show you problems that exactly mirror what your test tomorrow, your quiz tomorrow is going to be. It's exactly the same number of problems. The only difference is I will change every single number. So you won't see these exact same problems, but you'll see problems exactly like these problems. So the first section asks you to reduce each of the following square roots. It wants you to give exact answers. It wants you to show all of your work, and it does not want you to give any decimals. Now, when we're doing this, we are thinking about our perfect squares. So in our head, we should have our list of perfect squares because we are going to look for the largest perfect square that divides our number evenly. Now that does go on for a lot longer than that. So 50 is not a perfect square. However, 50 is divisible by 25. So we would in our head break 50 into 25 and 2. And then the square root of 25 we could do on the calculator, but you need to remember the plus or minus because again, your calculator will not do plus or minus. So if you forget it, you're going to lose one of your 2 points. Same thing here for the square root of 144. That is actually that is a perfect square. That is plus or minus 12. And again, if you forget the plus or minus and you only give me 12, you've only given me one of the 2 answers, which means you're only going to get one of the 2 points. 125 is not a perfect square, but it, like the one above it, is divisible by 25. It breaks into 25 and 5. The square root of 25 is plus or minus 5, and we still have the root 5 attached. Now we also reviewed how to deal with exponents. Again, exponents, it all depends on whether the exponent is even or odd. So for the 18 itself, we're going to break that into a 9 and a 2. The x to the 10th, that is an even exponent, so that entire exponent will reduce. If it were odd, we would place one of those x's here with the 2 and the will not reduce root, and the rest of them would go with the 9. Because when we take the square root of any term, the exponent will simply get divided by 2. So the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of x to the 10th would be x to the 10 divided by 2, which would be to the 5th. And then we still have root 2 on the end. You're going to have 4 of these on your quiz tomorrow. You are expected to show your work. So it would be ideal if you're showing the work step, and do not forget your plus or minus. The next section asks you to solve each of the following equations using the square root method. You need to show all of your work, give exact answers, and remember, I do not want a decimal answer, and nor does Miss Tepp. So you need to solve for whatever item in the equation is squared. Now on 5 and 6, that's already done for you. So your first step on 5 and 6 is going to be to take the square root of each side. The square root and the exponent will cancel each other out, leaving only x, and the square root of 25 is plus or minus 5. So that would finish number 5. On number 6, it is only a little bit different. We take the square root of each side right away because what is being squared is already isolated. On the left side, that will cancel the exponent and leave us with x plus 6. And on the right side, the square root of 81 is plus or minus 9. We would then finish solving this equation by subtracting 6 from each side of the equation. And I really probably shouldn't write that underneath the 9 because that's going to make you think you just subtract 6 from 9. That's not the case. Instead, what you get is x equals negative 6 plus or minus 9. Since negative 6 and 9 are like terms, we actually have to break that up. So our first answer would be negative 6 plus 9, or 3. And our second answer would be negative 6 minus 9, or negative 15. So my answers are x equals 3 and x equals negative 15. Same sort of deal for number 7, except we did not start off with this item isolated, so we have to isolate it by adding 17 to each side of the equation. That would give us x minus 2 quantity squared equals 45. Then we take the square root of each side, which would give us x minus 2 equals plus or minus 3 root 5. Now, if you're having trouble with reducing root radicals, you can use your calculator to do that. But again, you have to remember to insert the plus or minus because your calculator will not tell you to do it. Add 2 to each side. Now notice that this time, when I write that out, 2 and 3 root 5 are not like terms, so that's not going to get any better, and that is your answer. The third and bottom section on the front side asks you to complete each perfect square trinomial and write each trinomial as a binomial squared. Now those of you that are in my class, what that means is you are carrying out that completing the square process. Okay? So you're taking that 4, you're dividing by 2, which would be 2, and then you're squaring that to get 4. Right? There's your perfect square trinomial, and by the way, there is your binomial squared. So there's the 2 answers required in the problem. So we ought to be able to do this without actually showing the blank here. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 9 squared is 81. That 8 is pretty terrible, so let me do that again there. 81. So there's your trinomial, and there's your binomial squared. Same thing for number 10. That would be x minus 3 quantity squared, because 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then square that to get 9. There's the trinomial. There's the binomial. On number 11, we would have x plus 6 quantity squared, because 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then we would square that to get 36. And that would take care of that section. Now on the back, there are 4 problems. Now before we go running through the examples and these solutions for this, let me say this up front. This section is the major skill section. This is the skill that we have said is the non-negotiable skill. It is the one that you have to show mastery on if you do not want to go into our AC remediation groups to relearn completing the square. So you need to get, there are 4 problems at 5 points each. You will need to get 15 of those 20 points to be declared to have mastered the material. So you have to get at least 3/4 of the points on this section. So you can't afford to make stupid mistakes. You need to take your time. You need to make sure you're doing the problems correctly. So again, you need them. You need to start off by making sure that it's in the form. Okay, your starting form is x squared plus bx equals c. It has to be in that format to start the process, which number 12 already is. So we're just going to go in and we're going to insert our blanks. 1 blank on each side of the equation, and we're going to start the next line. Now again, we've been through this process enough by now, and everybody has shown me in class that they know how to do this. It's just whether or not you remember tomorrow. We need to take this 8 and we need to divide by 2. That would give us positive 4. Then we need to take that 4 and we need to square it to get 16. Whatever number we add to the left side, we also have to add to the right side. So that process is divide by 2, square, copy. That keeps the equation balanced, and it turns the left side into a trinomial that factors into the binomial squared, just like we did on the previous section. We add 9 plus 16 to get 25. And that means that we've now taken that equation and we have rewritten it as a square root problem, just like the ones we did on the front of the practice test. So our next step then would be to take the square root of each side, which would give us x plus 4 equals plus or minus 5, because the square root of 25 is either 5 or negative 5. And then just like we did on the front, we finish solving for x by subtracting 4 from each side. Now that gives us negative 4 plus or minus 5. That can be done, so we have to do it. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1. And negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. So my answers are 1 and negative 9. On to the next problem. Now this problem is not in our starting form, so we have to put it in our starting form by adding 7 to each side before we can begin the problem. That gives us x squared minus 4x equals 12. We're then going to insert a blank on each side and a blank on the next row. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, so that goes in this bottom blank. Negative 2 squared is positive 4, so that goes in the top blank. Copy over. 12 plus 4 is 16. Again, we're going to combine these. We then take the square root of each side, which gives us x minus 2 is plus or minus 4. And finally, add 2 to each side, which gives us x is 2 plus or minus 4. That, like the last one, can be split up. So we're going to split up the plus or minus. 2 plus 4 and 2 minus 4 give us our answers of x equals 6 or x equals negative 2. Two more, so we'll go ahead and do those two. Again, they're going to be quick because at this point you should know what you're doing. If you don't, a video the night before the quiz probably is not going to help. Hopefully it'll help a little bit though. That's the whole point of doing it. So again, we need to be in our starting form, right? If it's not in the form, x squared plus bx equals c, you have to put it in that form. So our first step here is to add 9 to each side, which would give us x squared minus 18x equals 9. We're going to insert a blank on each side and a blank on the next row. Negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. Negative 9 squared is 81. So that gives us a value of 90 on the left side. So we have x minus 9 squared equals 90, and we take the square root of each side because we're trying to solve for x. That gives us x minus 9 equals plus or minus 3 root 10 because 90 reduces to 3 root 10. Add 9 to each side. Those are not like terms, so this will not clean up any further than us simply saying 9 plus or minus 3 root 10. Next problem, same deal. We have to start by adding 9 to each side. That gives us x squared plus 10x equals 20. Insert a blank on each side. Our next line we're going to fill in with plus 5 because 10 divided by 2 is 5. Square 5 to get 25. Add that in both of these blanks. And then combine 20 plus 25 to get equals 45. So we have x plus 5 quantity squared equals 45. We're going to take the square root of each side, which gives us x plus 5 equals plus or minus 3 root 5. Subtract 5 from each side. And again, those are not like terms, so the best we can do is negative 5 plus or minus 3 root 5. That does it for the solutions to our practice quiz. Please make sure that you don't stay up all night studying, that you get up early and eat a good breakfast, and that you are awake and ready to rock and roll tomorrow. The first quiz of the semester is such an important grade because it sets the tone for the rest of the quarter. Good luck. I hope this video has been helpful.